We're talking about the absolute peak of modern air power, a stealth fighter designed to be a ghost in the sky. But what happens when that ghost gets seen? And not just seen, but hit? So, yeah, that's the big question, right? How can a fighter jet that's celebrated for its ability to evade the most sophisticated radar systems on Earth end up in the crosshairs of an enemy missile? We're talking about the F-35 Lightning II. You know, the $100 million marvel of engineering. Its whole promise is near total invisibility. So the fact that one was reportedly damaged in combat, well, that's not just an incident. It's a direct challenge to the whole idea of air superiority. All right, so to figure this out, we've got to get one thing straight. What stealth actually means? Because it's not some magic invisibility cloak from a sci-fi movie. Nope, it's a game of physics, and it has some very specific rules. And this is where it gets really interesting. On the left, you've got what the F-35 was born to do. Beat radar. Its weird shape, its special materials, it's all designed to scatter and absorb radar waves until it has a radar signature no bigger than a bird. Seriously? But on the right, you see its big, unavoidable secret. All that incredible performance? It comes from a ridiculously powerful engine, and that engine pumps out a massive trail of heat. So it might be invisible to one kind of sensor, but it's a glowing beacon for another. So while the F-35 is a master at hiding from radio waves, it just can't escape the basic laws of thermodynamics. And this burning secret, well, it's exactly what its adversaries are looking for. It all boils down to this thing called radar cross-section, or RCS. It's just a fancy way of asking, how big does this thing look on a radar screen? The entire design philosophy of a stealth fighter is to shrink that number down to almost nothing. The goal is to trick enemy air defenses into thinking there's nothing there at all. And right here, you can see the trade-off perfectly. If you want the speed, the agility, the sheer power of an F-35, you need an engine like the F-135. I mean, this thing is an absolute beast. But you can't create that much thrust without creating a ton of heat. It's just a law of physics you can't get around, and that, right there, creates a vulnerability. So think about it. If you're trying to hunt a stealth fighter, you're not going to use radar, right? That's what it's designed to beat. Instead, you use something called an infrared search and track system, or IRST. Just think of it like a super powerful heat-detecting telescope. It doesn't send out any signals. It just sits there, passively scanning the sky looking for hotspots. This makes it a silent hunter. And here's the kicker. Because it emits nothing, the F-35 pilot gets zero warning that they're being tracked. It completely bypasses the jet's main defense. Okay, so knowing this weakness exists is one thing, but actually exploiting it? That takes a very special kind of weapon, one that's patient, persistent, and can see in the infrared spectrum. And this is believed to be that weapon, the 358, surface-to-air missile. This is not your typical missile. It's this strange, clever hybrid, part kamikaze drone, part anti-aircraft weapon. And it seems like it was designed specifically for this kind of patient hunt. What makes this thing so different is how it attacks. Instead of a blazing fast straight-line dash to a target, the 358 is just launched into a general area where an enemy plane might be. And then it waits. It just loiters, flying slowly in this figure-8 pattern, sometimes for hours. All the while, its infrared sensors are scanning, scanning, scanning. The moment it detects a heat source, like, say, the engine exhaust of an F-35, it instantly switches from a loitering drone to a deadly missile, and it strikes. So what happened in this specific engagement? Well, reports suggest that the F-35 pilot probably detected the incoming missile at the very last second and punched out countermeasures like flares. The missile, being heat-seeking, likely went for the hotter flares, but it was already so close that its proximity fuse went off anyway, triggering the warhead. So instead of a direct, catastrophic hit, you get this storm of shrapnel that shreds the aircraft's control surfaces and its stealth skin. Damaged, for sure, but not destroyed, which allowed the pilot to get the plane back on the ground safely. But here's the thing, this one-on-one duel, it didn't happen in a vacuum. It was just one single dramatic moment inside one of the most complex and coordinated military operations you can imagine. So let's zoom out and look at the big picture. This whole mission was a masterpiece of timing. Planners use this tactic called time on target. I mean, picture this. You have weapons launched from different ships, subs, and planes, all traveling at different speeds from totally different places, and they're all choreographed to hit their targets at the exact same second. It's designed for total systemic shock. The attack itself rolled out in 3 distinct waves. First wave, that was all about kicking down the door. You had Tomahawk cruise missiles flying in low and fast to take out radar sites and command centers, basically blinding the enemy. Then, about 30 minutes later, with the air defense network all scrambled, the B-2 stealth bombers slipped through to hit the really important hardened targets. And finally, about 2 hours in, waves of F-15s and carrier jets moved in to hunt down and destroy anything that was left. But even with all of that incredible planning, you have to wonder, how did they get past one of the most dense air defense networks on the planet? Well, they didn't just attack it, they tricked it on a massive scale. The absolute key was deception. They unleashed hundreds of these tiny drones called MALDs, that's miniature air-launched decoys. Now, to an Iranian radar operator, each one of these little decoys looked exactly like a full-sized fighter jet, like an F-15 or F-16. So imagine their screens suddenly flooded with what looks like an impossibly huge invasion force. While the operators were totally overwhelmed trying to track hundreds of these phantom targets, the real stealth fighters, the F-35s and F-22s, slipped right through the chaos completely unseen. A brilliant trap. You know, if you're enjoying this kind of deep dive into modern warfare strategy and tech, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We get into this stuff every week, and you are not going to want to miss what we have coming up next. So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean for the future? This single incident, buried inside this massive operation, sends a really powerful message about how aerial combat is changing. I mean, it really challenges this long-held idea that fifth-generation fighters can just operate with total impunity in contested airspace. For years, the assumption was that jets like the F-35 were basically untouchable. This event proves that's just not the case anymore. The cat-and-mouse game between offense and defense is still very much on, and these passive heat-seeking sensors are a serious, serious threat. And that leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? As technology keeps evolving on all sides, from stealth jets to these loitering missiles and clever decoys, it kind of proves that in the high-stakes chess match of modern warfare, there's really no such thing as an invincible piece. There's only the constant, never-ending race for the next temporary advantage.